How you doing? Welcome to Ancient Chart Music and Art. I'll be your host. My name's Mayanna. And today I wanted to talk about how to wrap crystals. So what we're starting out with here is a very beautiful piece. If you look at the striations in there that reflect the light. Very beautiful piece of grain calcite. And it's got, a few tan stone inclusions there, here and there. Sometimes a bit of smoky quartz you'll find in a lot of especially green calcite for some reason. Either that or it's just more noticeable due to the beauty of that green, which is mesmerizing in my humble opinion. So this is an all-natural piece that was broken off with, archaeological tools. Then we have this natural piece of quartz that has been dyed. This brilliant kind of emerald green. I love it. And it's got a hole drilled into the side right across the top. Pretty cool. So I thought these would be good to include in order to show people two basic ways of wrapping stones. Whether they got a hole, which technically makes it a bead, or just a regular natural stone. Alright, so for starters, I thought it'd be fun to go over what to do with this. When you got a hole in the top, oh, well, you could always wrap around the stone too and just pretend the hole's not there. I've done that with a few pieces, but there's many kinds of good wire out there. Parawire's excellent. And I just wanted to say a couple of things before I begin regarding the kind of wire and tools you start with. Alright? Don't be afraid to go cheap for starters. My personal experience is that I had to practice this stuff a lot. I'm just one of those people. I gotta work on stuff. And someone who's especially talented, gifted in the way that they see things, perhaps have experience with other idioms within art that might come more easily to them because their mind's already forming those pathways. But what's really cool about, working on it a lot is that you don't have to get the best this, you don't have to get the best that. Sometimes you'll see a package, of 5 different tools to make jewelry with for, a small amount of money. I would buy that for starters. And then as far as crystals go, I'd go pretty cheap with those two. Go to Michael's, they got a whole bunch that you can start with. And the other thing I want to say about, using cheap wire, you can buy that in the same kind of volume package. And a lot of times it's fun to experiment with different colors and stuff. What I hear a lot of people who start out with wire say is, I don't want to waste wire. Oh, I nicked my wire. Oh, I did this. Well, to me, that's part of it. I wouldn't worry about wasting wire because it's just going to happen. You start bringing it to this perfectionist level where you give yourself a problem every time you nick your wire. Well, that's how you're going to learn not to nick it, So be good and patient to yourself, or with yourself, rather. Wrong preposition. Okay, so this happens to be some of the nicer wire, but I've been doing this for like 6 years. And 20 gauge is a great gauge to start with. This is a shade called vintage bronze on a copper core. And basically what they mean by that is the fact that over the copper there is an enamel coating that has, I know one of the elements that keeps it nice is that kind of stuff that you can nick, but a lot of times you'll learn not to have to do that in order to create a piece. But the enamel is made of a part plastic and dye and things like that. And so it's vintage bronze color over a copper core. So it's bare copper wire with the enamel put on over it. So if you've ever wondered about what that is about, now you know. Alright, so I have this. It's a brand new piece, and a lot of times they'll loop it around like that. So you're just going to slip this piece of wire through like that, and da-da-da-da. And you can use this wire. I'll show you how. And just before I do that, check this out. These are plastic nylon jaw or nylon tip straighteners, they call them. I like these a lot. I'm a big fan of them, and you can take them and go like that. I think they're for mostly avoiding marring jewelry, but I'll go into how I deal with that. So you see, I grip it on there, and I pull it through, holding this in place. That's going to stay in place. This one's going to move with a flat surface underneath. And ta-da! Now, wire's going to get bent all over the place. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you're just trying to move it. You're just trying to cut a piece off. Don't worry, it's all normal, man. And you can always do this again. You know, it's very kind to the enamel coloring that's on a wire such as this one. Alright, so I usually, I don't always measure it actually. I'll usually bring it out to what I would equate with 16 to 20 inches. And then when I go to cut it, I want to make sure that I'm really clear of the danger area here, you know what I mean? If it falls, it falls. Don't worry about that. Okay, so you just cut like that, good inch or so away from it. And then you catch it real quick and you got one to work with. So once again, I'm going to straighten this out after cutting it carefully. Alright. Beautiful. Wire straighteners. I love it. So I'm going to start with this guy right here. Because you can get like a whole string of these at Michael's. And this is actually an artificially dyed piece of natural quartz crystal that they also put the hole in through. And I think it's a lovely shade of green. I'm actually very pleased with this, and I was happy to find a whole string of them, you know what I mean? So what I do with this, and this is just a fun thing you can do to get started and get into the feel of the wire, is you send it through that hole gently, carefully. Alright? And then you bend it up like this. I really enjoy doing this kind of thing. Now, one thing that I also have in my arsenal would be this spike. My boyfriend's a mostly landscaping specialist, but he does a lot of masonry and other work too. And I stole this spike from a few different ones that he had. And I'll show you how I do this, and I think this is a great thing to learn early, because there's these little parts that are kind of like, and this is a good way just to get to know it. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm bending the wire over this. So I pull it tight, and then I move it, and on one side, I bring up the wire like this. And on the opposite side, I'm going to take the wire and go like this. So now, you have it doubled around the top there. Right? Da-da-da. Okay. Turn it that way a little bit if you want to center it a bit. And I like to keep the spike on here while I do this. Okay? You're going to start wrapping around. Alright? Now, one trick I found is that you hold the crystal and you let the wire rest right under the top of the spike. And there's a number of ways you can do this. This isn't the only way to do it. It's just something that I've developed a fondness for based on my experience with it. So you wrap that around and around and around and around. And I like to do a lot of my tops this way because I love that tribal wound look. Like there's a lot of it you see with leather, hemp, and I love that too, and I've found a way to incorporate that into my style of wire wrapping. Right, then I take the other one, and I do the same, but I come this way with it. Right, so you're going to pull that aside, just let it go down. And you wrap it around like this. And I wrap them around till they get to be about 2 inches. Alright? Alright, now what I'm going to do with these, as you can see, now I've got a nice pendant that's kind of hanging from that. You can take this off at this point because you can always use it to go back and reshape this from within. You can always just go like that, and then you move it around gently like that, pull it out, ta-da, it's uniform again. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take my plastic tip straighteners once again. Beep. And go like that. Beep. Alright. And make sure it's even with the top. I pressed it together a little bit. I'm going to have to straighten that out again, but that's okay. Now I have another tool in my arsenal. And sometimes you can get these nylon tip too. But these are the tapered tip pliers. Is what I always think of them as. And you're going to go like this. Take it to the very end, and you curl them around like that. You're going to maintain a sort of tension while you do that. Or I certainly do for me, if we want to talk in proper eye terms. I pull it out and curl it in at the same time, so it's kind of like that kind of feeling. Alright. So I'm going back and I'm going like this. You can do that at any point. I just tend to go back and do it a few times because I'm kind of... I've never been diagnosed OCD, but I get rather obsessive with certain things. Okay, now you can use this for that, but I prefer to take just some regular pliers, and this is from an art set I bought in the beginning when I was first learning how to do it. And I'm telling you, you're better off saving money in the beginning because usually it takes people a while to practice it, and it's actually a lovely little friendship that I've developed with jewelry making. It really, for other reasons that you may know about, if you've watched my other videos, I've found this to be extremely therapeutic. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, so I put electrical tape around these. To me, that's just the nicest way to do it. I've tried painter's tape. I tried, that putting that tool plastic on there. And some people find that these other methods are really good. I just like the electrical tape because I already had done some electronics work on a couple of my electric guitars. And so I was familiar with how good this stuff is at preventing any kind of damage, It's a good insulator, so I figured, hey, it'd be great for this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a spiral. All right? You grip it, and you turn it. And you grip it, and you turn it. And you grip it, and you turn it. And I would start out doing these, getting these started like this with your insulated pliers every time. Because then you can take your fingers once you get a feel for it and go like that. Took me a while to get that. So we're going to go through this one again. You go like that, and you go like that. And it's fun. And it's kind of thing where it's like you're literally stabilizing it and then turning it. Stabilizing it and turning it. It keeps it nice and flat too. And like I said, once you get a feel for that, you can even pull back on it a little bit and straighten it out. Or you can unroll it, re-roll it. That's the beauty of wire. It's such a flexible medium. All right, so see, this isn't not, that looks kind of cool, but that's not how the piece is. This wire is far too thin for that. You can get away with that kind of thing if you got like some, I dare say 18 gauge and 14, 12, like on that side of things. You know what I mean? Like you get away with that. But these are going to be ornamental later. Now, what I really like to do, and I know I use a lot of wire. If you've ever looked at my work, you'll see that I use an abundance of it. But I think it's so important for a piece to be stable. And I, much to the chagrin of my wonderful boyfriend, he really is. He's a wonderful man. I think he wished that I had kept a bunch of them in the store, but I test every single piece, every single type of piece that I have. And so I've got like 100 of my own pendants that I've made. And but I've got well over 100 in my shop, so. But I won't wear anything without testing it, and I can tell you that my experiences with this has been good, and I'm the kind of person like, I'll sometimes wear stuff like this in the shower, even though I wouldn't recommend it. Or, I'll just wear it around, and I used to work at a job where I was lifting and carrying things a lot, so, it gets worn down upon and things like that. So, when I'm telling you about this, it's because I tested it out, and I really, I think it's cool, and it has kind of a tribal look to it, and I really dig it, so I thought I'd share it, Alright, so for this, what I'll do is, and I'll just pull this out, probably what amounts to, it looks like a couple of feet, at least. And then I very carefully cut it again. Remember, if the wire falls, you can pick it up. And if you feel, like, ew, it's on the floor, I suppose you can wipe it off, But I just think it's so much more important for the wire to fall when compared with cutting your finger, And anyone can do stuff like that. I did something stupid like that making a sandwich yesterday. I made a little cut and my finger was like, 55 years old and I still do that sometimes. So if I'm erring a little on the side of caution in my personal suggestions, then that too is good when compared with not talking about these things. You know what I mean? Alright, so that's my opinion. So I straighten it out. Again, it becomes a very satisfying feeling to do this, because you have so much control over something. That's what's beautiful about realizing the differences between what you can and can't control. Alright, so I'm going to send this through. See this area right here? Oops. It doesn't want to cooperate. And I'm wondering about the shadow, but there's a little triangle just above the crystal. All right, I'm going to send it through. All right, when I get about halfway to the length of the entire wire, I'm going to start wrapping it. Just keep wrapping it. It can look like kind of like really neat if you wanted to, by going wire, layer after layer after layer after layer. And then you can go back up too if you want. And what's happening is you're wrapping over the second half of the wire that's coming out. So that's going to be securely put into place just there, just like that. All right, so, and if you pull a little hard and it comes off, that's okay. You know, just resituate it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take the second wire. And we're going to go like this. Yeah, baby, bringing it down on the top of the crystal. Yeah, all day long. Yeah. All right. So I just like to be silly and sing stuff, especially to my dogs. Like I sing a lot of songs to my dogs, and it's really fun because they're the sweetest little angels ever. Dogs inherently are. If they're made to be violent, that really sucks. All right, so you see how I've wrapped this down around? And it covers the top of it, and it almost looks like something that a primitive, you know, someone who I would honestly say had the privilege or has the privilege of living in a culture, an actual primitive culture. They have a kind of special piece that a lot of us in the world will never know about. And anyways, I've wrapped that around there, and it looks like something a tribal person would do. That's what I think is really cool about it. So I'm going to pull these out another time. And it's a real short trip. Boop. And then like that. Right? And what you have here is another couple things you can make spirals with and then flatten down against this bale. It's a large bale, and I make a lot of large bales, but I just think they're so cool. I'm even going to take a third piece and do the same thing with this. And man, you can try this with different colors, different shades of the same color, antique copper, natural copper, vintage bronze. I've made some pieces where I combine different wires and it came out really cool. Or like take a shiny greenstone, like one with like a metallic finish on it, and then match that up with some Kelly green wire. You know, it's just, that's what's the beauty of this discipline. And this, or if you want to call it an activity, that's totally cool too. So I'm going to bring this just down around to the base I created, and then wrap a few times more down. And that the other wires will get in the way. You just go back and move them. And then I go back up with it a little bit. And then here I'm going to do the same thing. But this time I'm going to go up. Up, around, and the spiral's going to cover and keep it all down. Right? I'm also a musician too. I was a professional musician for a long time. About 30 years. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know why. But all is good now. And I have immense respect for all kinds of musicians. I went to art school of music, which I was extremely lucky to be able to do, man. Just can't play in bars anymore. Did that for a long time. Alright, here we go back again, pulling it back and sending it forward. You know, basically just curling it. And you want that to be a real tight hold there. And you go like that. And then you go like that. And as you can see, I'm supporting it with my middle finger, or you can do so with your pointer. But I like to do it like that on the fingertips too. That's another way I like to do it. Alright, so you pull it around, and you bring them on down. Okay? So we're going to go back and curl these. And I can't stress enough, as long as, you know, I'm doing this for a minute, the importance of buying cheap tools and cheap wire from when you're first getting started. In fact, go to a hardware store like an Ace. Will usually, at least here in Connecticut, they have a lot of rolls of copper wire, and they usually have 22, 24, 20, 18. And I would recommend like going to like more old-fashioned place. Like Home Depot has copper wire, but it's for a far more practical application that would be utilized perhaps by an electronic contractor. Electrical. Sorry. Yep. At least you know that way that I'm not an artificial intelligence trying to get info from you about how and why you like wire wrap crystals. Alright, so that's enough of that silliness. So you're going to bring it around like this. See, I love making this kind of piece. And this piece will be for sale in my shop. And this is just part of my look and what I've developed as a result of, healing from alcoholism. And alcoholism is destructive, and this you're building or constructing something. So, the word constructive is, it should be used with respect. Because it's like, there's a lot of ways you could interpret that, and I suppose we're not here to discuss semantics. But just buy cheap wire and cheap tools, and sit down and have a ball. And don't expect yourself to be perfect all at once. Okay, look what we got here. See? It's a double-sided little guy with a nice bale. A little bigger than a lot of bales that you see in my tops. My heads are a little bit bigger, but that was also inspired by polymer clay. And I think it's great to incorporate other aspects of other idioms into whatever you do, be it musical or artistic, right? So this is, it's got a big kind of elven size head, and then, the polymer clay pieces that you see, and then it's got, this is in honor of artificial sinew that gets wrapped around arrowheads, and hemp and waxed cotton cord, which is great, easier to deal with than hemp, and, all kinds of good stuff. So, yep, it's got a large head. I've sold a bunch of these, and that's how you make one with a hole in it. So that's kind of a cool thing to start with. Now, here's a whole nother thing we're going to get into, which is really, really cool. All right? Now, to save time, I made these ahead of time. It's some silver-plated wire, which is not plated. Silver-plated wire is actually a wash of silver. It wears off after time. It's not going to stay there as a plate, but they call it silver plate because it's traditionally been called so, probably, I don't know, by a shyster of some kind. Some silver plating is stronger than others. But with this wire, it's going to wear off. You'd see copper underneath it. Even though here it says silver-plated silver, that just means it's colored silver. Now, Parawire makes excellent wire, but I would start with Beadalon and stuff like that just to save money. But when you see their wire and it says silver-plated silver, it doesn't mean it's silver-plated over silver. It means it's washed with silver over copper. Silver is just the color. They offer them in a variety of different colors. Excuse me. Allergies. Alright, so this is what I'm using, 22 gauge, which is fine for when you're starting out, once you get a use, because it's really easy on the hands, and once you get used to it, then you can move up to a 20. That's how I did it. My fingers and hands are, hands are pretty big, but my fingers are pretty small, or they have the illusion of being small because of this whole area. I was reading about that. That's a whole nother video. Alright, so what I'm doing is, I'm curling this around like that, okay? So you can make it almost look like a spring on top of there, and if you want to, you can push it in with your nails on either side. For our purposes right now, we're just going to keep it that way. This is one way that you can do it that's a little different than the other way, but since I like to combine them, we'll be going over both ways here. So you're just going to pick wherever you want to start here, and you put that there, right? And yeah, we're turning it upside down, but this is good for starters, just to keep a good eye on what you're doing. Directly across from it, right? You're going to pull them tight, and then you just twist them. And you can do twists or coils on the side, and I think it's really cool, So give it, 5 or 6 twists, you press it up against, so that now we can see that we have a base off which to build as we go up. And as you can see, this is real pliant. You're going to try to find the flattest surface you can, like right here. And then here's another example of curling it by using your thumb and your pointer tip. And you can, I would say at least 4 wraps like that. Then you see how I part it like that, so that they're always facing them out. You always want them like that, kind of perpendicular to the wrap you just made. Okay, now another example of the twist. And I do have a number of pieces where I just use both because I think that it looks cool. So you're going to twist it tight. I do it pretty quick these days, but it's really nice and it feels really cool. Alright, so then I flatten those both up so that all of the coils or twists you just made are going to be facing upright, right? Right? And it doesn't matter how close or far apart they are, it's just for the base one you want it to be directly across from each other. And then the pattern continues kind of naturally, but if it gets off a little bit, don't worry about it. Alright, so what I like to do from here is I take this, and I'm taking one from either side, right? Got a coil on that side and a twist on that side. And they're facing off against each other, so to speak. You take the longest of both sides, and you pull it together like this. And that's where we utilize this guy. I apologize for the haphazard manner in which I threw this together, but I'm just so nervous to do it that I decided to go for it and just face that. Okay, there we go. I'm leaving both sides of what I just wrapped down. And this time I'm going to do this. Once again, just hold it there. This time I'm not holding the stone, though. I'm holding the bale that I made before. The one I just made. And I'm going to start twisting these all around. Right? Leave a couple inches. This one I'm going to go this way to kind of even it out. That one's going that way. This one's going that way. And I will be making subsequent videos that will explain anything I get a question about. You know? I'm not saying, oh, there'll be so many questions. I just mean that, if you want to ask, I'll answer. So if you have questions about any of this, just ask and I'll be happy to answer them. And this one, we're going to bring around this side. I tend to alternate them like that, so you got an even wrap. And at this point, I'm going to hold the stone. Alright. I turned it over, so now I got to go under and wrap it over. Alright, so there we go. We got that. Rather than making spirals yet, I'm going to start under there. So I take this, my 22 gauge silver plated wire. I know I'm going off camera here and there, I'm sorry. I hope it's not too bad, but I'm fairly new at this. Not brand new, but fairly new. Okay, so I cut off a length of wire that, in this case, I don't measure a lot, but this is about 14 inches, so I'd say at least a foot. Okay, then you're going to pull this out so you can handle the stone better. And you're going to send it through underneath where the stone, right on top of the stone, which is right under the bale. You put it through that space. And we're going to wrap under a little bit. Especially with 22 gauge, you're going to want to do a lot of this. Or you can even take some 20 gauge and wrap it on over it. I do that sometimes too, which, I don't know. I might just do that now. Alright. So you see how you don't want it to go like that, obviously, and unfortunately, it's just, people get careless and it can go that way. Now to retighten everything I've just wrapped, sort of around the spool that I've created, I'm going to go like that. Whew. Like that. Like that. Sometimes when it gets worn out, when, it's not as flat as it used to be, you have to fish around. But what I'm doing in straightening these is not only creating a great place for spirals, but I'm also tightening all the wire. And like, you see how it looks kind of messy? Hey, if it was, if it's a little too messy, then you can be a lot slower with this and really take your time with it. And make it look as neat or as haphazard as you want. Just, this is how we get to know what we're doing. Hang on a sec, I got some silver plated 20 gauge right here. Nope, this is 26 gauge. I got it now, though. Okay, so you can't say that I didn't. Okay, I'm going to pull it out. As you can see, it's a lot more substantial, right? So I'm going to measure this at around 18 inches. I'm going to take my plastic tip straighteners and I'm going to go like that. Alright. I am like so nervous to do this, guys. Thanks so much if you've made it this far. We're going to put it, just wrap it around the base. Kind of like what we did earlier with the other piece we made. We're going to wrap it around the base. I'm trying to make it real neat. Sometimes it slants, like the whole thing will slant. And I made a slant top cabochon like that once, and it sold right away. You just never know what people are going to like. Because I've had things, some things I was like, yeah, this is okay, and it's sold, and, you know, like other ones that I would have deemed more sellable on the immediate level, which I don't know if I'm even speaking English at this point, but in all seriousness, let's just get back to this. So I'm going to straighten them out, and I'm going to spiral them all. With this guy once again. So you want the softer ones to go down first, the softer spirals that I'm going to make. Meaning the thinner ones, the 22 gauge, and then you put the 20 gauge on top of them and it really holds them into place nicely. I like to go around, and if you're doing this with me, that's really cool. Because I remember how daunted I was by these things. And videos I'd watch here on YouTube, they helped me so much, man. I love that. Okay, there we go. We got that. Oh, one more I missed. You're going to find there's all kinds of great wire, too. Square wire, and there's going to be half round wire, and there's so many great tutorials. Oksana Crafts is one. CSL Designs has some great videos. You know, there's just so many people. Kelly Jones Jewelry. Oh my goodness, my friend Karen has one too. Karen's Intuitive Jewelry on Etsy, and she has some nice tutorials too. I'm going to include the links for those once I get the video up. I think I'm going to put the video up first, but I definitely wanted to mention those guys because another great guy that does tutorials that I'm really inspired by is Matt's Crazy Art, who also has a channel called Mateo Moscow, and he does a lot of motivation and a lot of comedic stuff, and has gotten a lot of people into making jewelry, man. He has his own whole style. Matt's Crazy Art, I'm telling you, that's a great place to check out tutorials, man. And once again, let's move these down a little bit. The electrical tape. It's okay, baby. One of my dogs is outside the closed door. My boyfriend's watching TV, so I hate closing doors on them. Like, they don't like it at all. We have 2 Boston Terriers and 1 Puggle Poodle. And Puggle Poodle's a rescue. We love her very much. We love the Boston Terriers very much. We've had them all since they were puppies. One's 10, one's 9, and then there's the 4-year-old Boston Terrier. It's kind of sad, you know, like she's still so spunky and stuff, but you know, that, you know, she's older, so we just take very good care of them. My boyfriend buys them the best natural food. And okay, so you see how I'm taking the thinner ones, and I'm just putting them in between my fingers like that. You can use this too, but or any kind of plastic tip thing that has a flat edge on it. So I'm feeling for, okay, this one's skinnier. It's going to go down first against the bale flat. So you move it like that. Then you got this. That feels thicker, so I'm going to go for the thin ones once again. Alright. So then I got the thicker ones on top. Kind of holds them down nice. That one felt thinner, so this 20 gauge spiral is going to go on top of it. And I love other artists that use a lot of circle of life symbols too. Real Tribal Stone is a great company on Etsy that they do that too. Like they're very simple tribal looking art. To me it's just such a universal symbol of the circle of life and how, things go around and around. So there you have it. I can even wrap more, and I probably will end up wrapping more of a base around this. But for our intents and purposes here, and once again, I'm going through and straightening that out, that is how you can make a couple of wire pendants. You got the thicker 20 gauge vintage bronze, and you got the thinner one. Like I say, I'm probably going to put more layers on underneath it, and these will both be for sale in my Etsy shop. Ancient Chart Jewelry. But I wanted to give back to the community what was so freely given to me in free tutorials, and I certainly hope that this was helpful. And I would say you just hang in there, let yourself have that beginner's experience, and then I found myself sitting in the beginner's experience. I'd sit in my room for 6 hours just wrapping pendants while I watch TV, it's just so cool, man. Alright, so we'll be going over more in the future. I thank you for hanging in, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Be happy and safe, and be good to yourself and others.